Many actors like to use beats in their work. Beats are the mini pauses, breaths, or silent holds, which are used for a variety of reasons. Even directors like the use of the beat when working with actors to draw attention to any given moment. However, there are issues surrounding the beat that can negatively influence the actor's choices. Today, we'll look at beats. Not the vegetable, but the healthy acting tool actors like to consume. You see what I did just there? This is yet another episode of Casting Actors Cast for you to devour. Okay, I'll stop now.
This is Casting Actors Cast. Here's your host, Jeffrey Dreisbach.
Well, hello, and welcome to today's episode of Casting Actors Cast. I'm casting partner Jeffrey Dreisbach with the McCorkle Group in New York. How are you? I hope you're having a good day. I'm having a good day, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you and with you about acting beats. But first, this is that moment of the podcast where I just simply get to say thank you for tuning in to Casting Actors Cast. This is a growing audience, and it is very, very exciting to have you on board. If you'd like some more information, maybe you're interested in some past episodes of the podcast, the podcast videos, you can do that at castingactorscast, all one word.com. Castingactorscast.com. And there's a form, by the way, that says dive into the talent pool right up there on the landing page. And if you do that, that's going to open up some freebies for you. One is a 100-page PDF book I wrote called Conversation Pieces Out of the Studio, the voiceover workshop for professional actors. There's also a free video, What Casting Directors Don't Tell You. But I'm going to tell you in this 20-minute video. It's exclusive to those of you who are interested in jumping into the talent pool. By the way, I don't do anything with your name and your email. I might on occasion send out an announcement about an upcoming class or perhaps an upcoming episode of the podcast videos. Please also consider, it would mean so much to me if you could leave a like, a thumbs up, a review. If you're going to check out the YouTube content, you'll see me simulcasting the podcast on YouTube, then by all means, it would mean a great deal to me to leave a review and let me know that you're out there. That's, after all, what keeps me motivated and keeps me excited about sharing this information with you. So thank you very much for that. And finally, my shout out to actorsconnection.com/New York. actorsconnection.com/New York. What a wonderful place. Everything is online now, and you can work with really talented professionals in the industry, people who are working in the industry, to give you up-to-the-minute information on what's happening. That's actorsconnection.com/New York. All right, let's jump into the subject at hand as we talk about beats. First of all, I think it's important for us to be on the same page as far as a definition is concerned. So beats are really moments. They're breaths, they're pauses, which are experienced by the character from the actor. So the actor will impose a breath, a beat, a pause, for a variety of reasons. And we'll talk about those reasons in a second, but let's just break it down even a little further and talk about the kind of beats that the actor might want to consider or that you actually see in performances. First of all, there's the physical beat. That is simply holding for feedback, whether it's reaction from another character or it's reaction due to comic timing. Maybe there's a bit and there's a comic moment. Maybe the beat is just physically stopping the action in order for something else to take place, like a reaction. So think of terms of the physical side of a beat as just simply reaction, comic timing, or comic business. It really is forward movement into another sensibility. That's what the physical beat is all about. Then there's the emotional beat, and that's allowing the moment to process or shift into another gear. For example, if the character is experiencing stress or fear or joy, that there may be a moment where the character has to process the emotional foundation of what that character is going through in order to get to this next emotional gear change. And that's what a beat can be useful for as far as on the emotional side is concerned. So if a character is just given news about something really awful or fearful, then we need, as an audience member, for example, we need to see the experience of that new information in the life of the character. It can be, like I said, stress, fear, joy, just simply processing information which has some kind of emotional impact. It can also be for dramatic impact. The dramatic gear change is really a mental manifestation of thinking into another thought. So in other words, a thoughtful response. If you're having an argument with somebody and you need to think about what the next argument is, there is a logical sense of a beat taking place for you to be able to summon the additional information that's required. So that's the mental, the physical, and the emotional beat. Here's why beats work, I think. And it's kind of obvious, but it might be interesting, I think, to point it out. The beat works because it really does heighten dramatic tension. It really can have the audience experience the emotional shift that the character is going through. And that beat can be very, very useful. It also emphasizes the comic timing, the dramatic timing, or the character-driven moments. So that character will elicit an empathetic response if that beat is being used in the right way. Also, another use of the beat, it allows for new discoveries for the character or the audience, for the audience impact. Like, for example, let's talk about the end of a scene where you make a final statement and you hold that moment, you hold that beat. Now, if you're doing film and television, you hold that beat in that moment, and then it's the editor who decides how you're going to go into the next scene, right? On stage, of course, there are beats laid out for you. And as I mentioned in the introduction, sometimes directors really love giving notes about beats. You know, stay in that moment until you then discover what the next emotional point should be. And that's when the beat can then stop, and then you can move on to the next point. So here are some reasons I think that some beats that I've seen, and especially in auditions, some beats are very, very unsuccessful. First and foremost is that the beat feels mechanical. It's not a truthful thing. It's not, it's something that is manufactured, is the best way to say it. I've seen beats go on too long, that there is no sort of understanding about what that moment is all about. So it goes on for too long, or it just simply has a feeling that it's a manufactured thing. This is oftentimes, in my opinion, a director's note gone wrong. This is when I've actually had the experience of doing a world premiere of a play called Nurse Jane Goes to Hawaii. And the director said, "Jeff, at that moment, I want you just to not move, don't do anything, and count to 5 before you start your line." I was like, oh, okay. So I literally made a mechanical moment out of stopping. In my head, I'm counting to 5, and then I deliver the punchline. Well, you know, I just thought that was really weird because it took something that should have felt more organic, and it just made it very mechanical. But guess what? In that situation, in that moment, it worked like great. Simply not doing anything, no reaction at all, elicited a response. And I did fudge it a little bit because I did not decide to not do anything. I decided to have sort of an inner monologue that explained why I was kind of frozen in disbelief for an extended period of time. So I really did make it an emotional moment so that it made sense to me as an actor and as the character. But it's really interesting that sometimes, especially in comedy, that you can see that some of these beats, some of these moments sometimes don't work, and it's because there's a sense of it being a little bit too mechanical. Now, similar to mechanics, I think beats are sometimes unsuccessful because they're disconnected from the moment, that there's no real understanding or reason why that character is pausing. It just doesn't seem to make sense. You see what I did just there? So taking a look at what that comic timing or that dramatic moment is all about, if the beat is connected and in the moment, then you're going to be much better off. And then finally, the other reason I think that I see that beats don't work is that it just is simply being neutral. It's not driving the moment. It's not connected tissue to what's taking place. In other words, nothing is happening. And when nothing is happening, nothing is happening. Think of that, what I'm talking about, as if you've ever had the experience of forgetting your lines. And you're trying really hard to remember what your next line is, and you just simply can't remember it. I don't know if you've had that experience. It's that terror, that inner terror thing that's going on. If nothing is happening, then we're confused as an audience. Then we don't really understand where we should be in context with what the characters are going through. So that's why when nothing is happening, that's when the beat reveals itself as something has gone wrong. You know, in radio and television, they call that dead air. You've had that experience, right? You're driving in the car and suddenly the signal goes out or something happens where nothing is taking place. Dead air. Boy, that's a dreadful moment. That takes you out of the experience and puts you into another reality. So here's how my suggestions about using beats in your work. I think it's best to think of beats as gear changes. And I've talked about gear changes before, but kind of let me go over that just a little bit again. Think of gear changes in the following way. Whenever there is a new thought, whenever the character is experiencing a new thought, it really is amazing that you can take and change the pitch of your voice when you go from one thing to another. You simply changing the pitch of your voice, that's a gear change. So when you go from one thought to another thought, that's gear changes. So the pitch of your voice can change. The pace can change. You're talking at this level because you've got something really important to say, but now a new thought means a new emphasis. So pitch, pace, and then finally the beat is one of those gear changes that when you pause, you can create very interesting moments for yourself. So if you can think of beats as gear changes, going from one thought to another, you're going to find it very stimulating and very useful tool, especially if you're using the beats to mess around with as you're preparing material for an audition, let's say. Here's the other useful item I think that's helpful for actors in knowing where to use their beats, is if you know why the character needs that moment, if you can explain in your own mind why that beat is taking place, the justification of that beat means everything, because that is you processing. And when I can see the processing, I see good acting. When I see the character trying to think of the next right best thing to say, but it requires a moment of silence in order to get there, then I am connected with that character and with that actor. Here's another thing that I think is useful for actors in using beats. It really does allow, and this is that phrase you hear all the time, and I'm not crazy about it, but I think it applies here, and that is that it allows for organic timing to set the tone, the mood, the purpose of what's taking place. So when you can impose the right mood or tone and use that in the form of a beat, then you've now given a full expression of whatever moments you are using and choosing to use. That makes for an exciting opportunity. I see actors many, many times, because of their nervous excitement in an audition, they forget to use those beats in an effective way, partly because it seems like you're drawing attention to yourself as opposed to filtering it through what the character is experiencing, not what the actor is doing. All right. Finally, I think that actors should just simply explore all of the options of the beat. See how it might be effective. But also I want to caution you, as we're talking about all of these ways and methods of incorporating the beat into your work, I believe it needs to be used sparingly. When overused, it becomes stilted. It becomes disquieting, for lack of a better word. And so be very careful about the way in which you use those beats. Connected thought can drive the narrative of the piece with an occasional beat for emphasis. That to me is an appropriate way of looking at the material in an organic way. Now listen, of all the tools I like to see in the actor's toolkit, I think using effective timing in the form of a beat is really one of the most effective tools. So I can tell you that used poorly, it's often perceived as a mechanical choice with little or no connection to the moment. But used well, the actor can explore the inner conversation of any given moment. So just think of it this way. It's always a good idea to enjoy your beats. They're good for you. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach. Thanks for tuning in. This is Casting Actors Cast.
Thank you for joining Casting Actors Cast. Please don't forget to review, like, and share Casting Actors Cast wherever you get your podcast videos. Thanks. I'm Megan Grace Martinez.